This video will give you an introduction into how Buddhists make moral decisions. Buddhism is a spiritual tradition which began in Asia, but is now commonly found around the world. Buddhism teaches that each individual is responsible for his or her own actions. Buddhism does not teach particular ethical rules, but does have some principles by which followers can make moral decisions. In Buddhism, the way you should behave is influenced by the Four Noble Truths. These are four statements which Buddhists believe are always true. Buddhists study, meditate, and act in ways which will help them to understand the Four Noble Truths better, in order to attempt to live a life free from suffering. The first Noble Truth is the truth of suffering. That is, if you look at the world around you, you will see suffering. The one feature of all life is that there is some form of suffering in it. Can you relate to this? Can you think of any ways in which you or someone you know has suffered? Suffering comes in many different forms. There can be physical suffering, as seen by the Buddha on his first journey outside his palace, relating to sickness, old age, and death. There can also be mental suffering, linked to emotions, depression, and being unfulfilled. These are not the only ways people can suffer. This first noble truth may seem to convey a negative outlook on life, but the truths do not end there. The second noble truth is the truth of the origin of suffering. The Buddha taught that the cause of all suffering is desire, which comes in three forms: greed, ignorance or delusion, and hatred. These are represented in Buddhist art by a rooster, a pig, and a snake, respectively. The third noble truth is the truth of the cessation of suffering, the way in which the Buddha taught suffering could be ended. The Buddha taught that the way to end suffering is to remove desire and attachment to worldly objects and emotions. This is the way to reach Nirvana, which means extinguishing. Once greed, ignorance, and hatred have been extinguished, a person can reach Nirvana. Nirvana is not a place people go to, but a state of mind. It is a state of spiritual enlightenment, achieved by removing desire. The Buddha discouraged people from asking questions about Nirvana, and preferred them to focus on the task of removing desire to end suffering. The fourth noble truth is the truth of the path, or the way in which the Buddha taught people to go about ending suffering. This is called the Eightfold Path, and is also known as the Middle Way. The symbol of Buddhism represents the Eightfold Path, the path to the end of desire and the end of suffering. The 8 spokes of the wheel represent the 8 actions you can see on your screen. These are not arranged in order of importance, or in any particular order, but all go hand in hand to make up the Buddhist way of life. These can be split into 3 categories. Right understanding and right intention are under the category of wisdom. Right understanding is accepting the Buddha's teaching and practicing and judging them for oneself, and right intention is having a commitment to developing the right attitude. These help to understand right from wrong, and lead to better understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Right speech, action, and livelihood fall under the category of ethical conduct. These are behaviors which help people to live in the right way. Right speech is speaking truthfully and avoiding lies and deceit. This means a Buddhist must learn to control their words. Right action is about behaving peacefully and avoiding hurtful actions to self and other living creatures. Right livelihood is making a living without exploiting anyone or anything, and therefore contributing in a positive way to social and economic growth. Buddhist teachings advise against certain professions which can harm others. The last 3 spokes of the wheel, right effort, mindfulness, and meditation, fall under the category of mental development. Right effort means cultivating a positive attitude and working towards freeing oneself from suffering. Right mindfulness is developing an awareness of the self in all its aspects, including the body, sensations, feelings, and states of mind. Right meditation is developing mental focus. The Eightfold Path, the middle path, is, in Buddhist belief, the way to end suffering. The goal of the Eightfold Path is to bring full understanding of the Four Noble Truths and deliver their teaching, the end of suffering. By following the Eightfold Path, a Buddhist is thought to live a noble life. Buddhists believe that humans are free to make their own choices. In Buddhism, there is an idea of the individual value of each life, although there is no emphasis on the individual as a self. Selfish action is being self-centered, but Buddhists believe the self is not important. The idea of not-self shows how all humans are linked universally to others. All living beings are part of the cycle of life. Buddhists hold to the principle of non-harm. This fosters an attitude of care towards all living beings. Buddhists are also guided in ethical matters by the idea of karma, the idea that actions have consequences, if not in this life, then in reincarnation, and good actions may mean being reborn in a higher realm. Buddhist ethics is sometimes described as a form of virtue ethics, rather than deontological or teleological. The aim is to be like a noble person, someone on the path towards enlightenment.